on the other side of fatigue management, there's obviously stress and everything coming into our lives. And the other side of it is what can we actually do to recover from any stress that we have to have. And one of those major contributors is our sleep. So making sure that, and it'll change depending on what phase we're in. I find, and I've seen research on a lot of people needing more sleep in a gaining phase because we're actually like accruing tissue and that takes a lot of energy to do. And it depends whether you're enhanced or natural, as in when you're natural, you're producing a lot of those hormones, growth hormone, testosterone, whilst you're sleeping. So while it isn't really important to set enough time, the best things that I find around sleep is make sure you set enough time to actually have 8 hours being the fucking rock bottom minimum. Pushing towards 9 in a gaining phase, and you might just naturally wake up a little bit earlier when you're in a cutting phase, but just setting that amount of time is probably one of the most important things.
Yeah, I found it hard in the gaining phase to actually set that amount of time because so much food's got to go in during the day. And, you've got other things you need to do during the day. I feel sorry for anyone who has a 9 to 5 trying to do this because it's fucking impossible. A lot of time to myself to be able to actually manage and structure the food in daily. And still I'd be up to almost midnight every single night, sitting there trying to get all my calories in. But this is also because I keep fats right down. So carbs are through the fucking roof. And it takes a lot longer to eat carbs than what it does with fats. So I've got a lot more food to push down. So yeah, I wouldn't be getting like if I got to bed by 11:30, that'd be a great fucking day. I can get I'll probably get around 7 hours sleep. That'd be awesome. But yeah, quite often I was going after midnight, even up to 1 a.m. And then, I got to get up. I got my son, so I got to get up at like 7 in the morning to wake him up. Yeah, first 10 weeks of the growth phase wasn't too bad. Like I could actually get up and tell him to get up. But as you'd know, when you put on a lot of weight, your body's accumulating a lot more stress. It wants to sleep for longer. In the end, I was laying in bed just screaming down the house again, like I did last growth phase. Deja, get out of bed. So I could get an extra half an hour, roll over and sleep,
And that's exactly it, because bodybuilding doesn't exist in a vacuum. There's a person attached to that, and there's a life attached to that person, whether that be family, work, other, commitments to whatever you may be doing. And you sort of have to decide, what are your priorities? Because I know a lot of people, and it happens often in prep, where a lot of those things that actually truly do matter to you actually get pushed to the side. And it's just really good to be conscious of those things and be true to the person that you want to be. But if you do want to be the best, bodybuilder you can be, then trying to make sure, and you can do both. But once it obviously depends if things have time constraints and things like that. Where you're setting up your bodybuilding first and then putting the priorities in, seeing how you can shuffle them and all around it. But for me, that's why I only coach clients in the afternoon face to face. So if I have a little bit of a later night, I have unlimited sleep in until at least midday. And I always try to go to bed. But I feel naturally better when I wake up early. So I usually am in bed about 8:30 and I try and get up at around 6:30. So I allow, sort of 10 hours, because I know I'm not going to get to sleep straight away. And that's, if you said 8 hours, you're not sleeping for 8 hours. You're going to be getting up to piss. You're going to be taking fucking 45 minutes to go to sleep. And by the time you put it all together, it's 7 hours. And I know when I was growing like a fucking animal, I was asleep for 9 to 9.5 hours every night. And I just felt fucking awesome. If you can do that, if you want to fucking grow the best you can, try and make that happen.
Yeah. Fuck. You got to bed at 8:30 p.m. That's like a dream come true for me, but it just doesn't happen ever.
And it depends. Like for me, I'm lucky. My body moves really fast. I can get food down pretty easy. Like even when I was eating, 5,500 calories, I was still hungry. And I think a lot of that has been from the food choice that I've been forced to make and really finding what's working. And I have all my meals on my calendar. I have my sleep on my calendar. I have my sleep routine on my calendar, which leads me into, within that 10 hours, I allow 45 minutes for like wind down time where all the screens are off. I try not to turn any lights on in the house, because your body does have, an effect where when you have light in your eyes, you get a little bit of a burst of energy. Because evolutionarily, like we sort of get a bit of a boost of energy at night when the sun starts to go down, so you can sort of get everything done before you have to go to bed for the night. So once that light's off, then you have sort of like an hour, maybe a little bit less, before you really start to come down into that easy sleep. So being on your phone, one of the fucking worst things you can do. Scrolling, kicking up all the dopamine, that's one of the worst things you can do as well. So having a wind down routine, whether that be reading, listening to a podcast, things like that. And as well as everyone's different as far as like when you have your last meal. Like I used to be able to fucking legit eat, go straight to bed, out. Now it's like if I eat, my heart's beating and I can't fucking sleep for like about 45 minutes. So I have to make sure that I get that in 45 minutes before. And then there's sleep supplements as well that we can sort of add as well.
That's interesting that you can't sleep when you have food beforehand. So I save, like, I know it's definitely not the best way to go about things in regards to blood glucose levels, but I'll save a carb meal for right before bed because carbs help you sleep. And it's a terrible choice of carb meal as well. Like I'll probably, because I've been fasting now, I'll fast till around 11 a.m. to midday, pushes all my meals back. And even though I'm in a deficit now, I don't feel like I'm in a deficit because I've got a lot of food to go in during that 12-hour gap. Yeah, well, less than 12 hours. I'm aiming for about 10 o'clock. So about 10-hour gap, I've got a lot more food going in. And I'll have cocoa bombs. I'll have my rice and steak meal. And it's that close to bedtime anyway that I'll just push the cocoa bombs in as well because it fits in my macros. And I'll have that right before I go to bed. And I've been sleeping really well. I did also have a bit of a stressful time in regards to snoring and sleep apnea. I think I need to get a CPAP because so many bodybuilders get it. It's like a fucking known thing in the bodybuilding industry that you get a CPAP, you rest better, you recover better, you're going to grow better. So I've had to get onto that. But yeah, so I use the snoring app first. I heard myself snoring like an absolute asshole all night. Even my missus came because we don't live together or anything. She just comes past every now and again because she's working as a flight attendant. She said she opened my front door, which is down the other end of the house. And as she opened it, she could hear me snoring my fucking head off. So she was stressed about going to sleep. She's like, fuck, how am I going to sleep when he's snoring like that? So I thought, all right, I'll do something about this. Got the CPAP, got all that stuff done. I think it was about probably in total with the inclusive of the appointment, probably under 2,500, about $2,000. Yeah. And so it's not cheap either, but I got it all together and I used it for a few nights and it was actually good. Like it improved my sleep a little bit, but it was so uncomfortable. I didn't get used to it. I used it for a few nights and then I fucking threw it next to the bed and I thought, fuck this. I'm going to sleep without it. Because the mask was really tight as well. And because I've had my nose open so many times, it was blocking it. Like, I only really had the option of one nostril at a time, as is. That's just the way that my nose works now. Sometimes I get two on the occasion, but yeah, it was squashing everything, so I couldn't breathe. This device that I got to put on my face to help me breathe stopped me from breathing. So that was very counterproductive.
Yeah.
So I went back. I got a new mask. I've got a new mask for it now, but my sleep doesn't seem to be that bad since I've pulled the calories out. Probably would recommend it for anyone who struggles with snoring or sleep apnea to go get it as well. But yeah, I'd say it will improve my sleep. Once I go deep into prep and PEDs go back up, I think I get sleep apnea pretty bad then. So I'll save it for then.
Yeah. And everyone's
recovery. Yeah.
Yeah. Like some people get it. I know I had it at one stage when I was only like 105 kilos, but that was when I was younger, abusing PEDs because I didn't know better. And my diet was fucked. So I would have had so much inflammation up here, fucking all around my neck, water. And I would wake up with like a snort every now and then. I'd be like, what the fuck just happened? Probably wasn't breathing for the last fucking minute. And I would wake up foggy. You sort of feel like you're constantly waking up and then having that back to sleep, waking up and you're like, can't be fucked again, go back to sleep. That's a pretty clear indicator you have sleep apnea. And if you have sleep apnea and it's proper and you get the mask, life-changing. Like there's for people that actually significantly struggle from it, it's a fucking day and night difference So, and once again, you can try the non-invasive stuff or the expensive stuff at the beginning, like try the strips. For some people that doesn't work. Like if your nose has been fucked a bunch of times, like it's only going to do so much, but it's good to try and just see if it helps you. So quality of sleep. So obviously we've got duration of sleep, you got nighttime routine, setting it aside, quality of sleep. If you're a big boy, you got your CPAPs and getting a sleep test. And then you have sleep sups as well. So valerian, really good one. That I've tried that recently. So Matilda recently got sponsored by Axe supplements, and we've started using Dream, and fuck it helps. But for me, I find myself a bit groggy in the morning. So taking it an hour to 2 hours before sleep, I found like I'm actually getting drowsy and I wake up a lot better. As well as ashwagandha and black seed oil, I find really good for sleep quality.
Okay. I was using what's it called? Melatonin. Any shit that you get from the pharmacy is rubbish. It's not going to fucking work. So I was getting it online through iherb.com. I can't remember exactly which brand it was.
The
Melatonin,
I think.
I'd wake up groggy as fuck. So I'd crack it up, try it again, still a bit groggy, take a quarter of it. It still put me to sleep, not as well, but I'd still wake up a little bit groggy. This was going back about probably three years, I'd say. And that's when that's when Dream was released. I'm also sponsored by X Labs, and Dream was released back then, and that's what got me onto their subs, because their subs are fucking great. And the Dream got me through my fucking prep, man. I couldn't use melatonin. My last prep I used Valium. I don't know why I didn't use Dream. I used Valium, and all right. This helped me sleep a couple of times as well. I'd sleepwalk to the fucking 7-Eleven on the corner, get some donuts. Guilty. Won't be doing that again, because I'll use Dream. Yeah, because Dream, I don't get any grogginess whatsoever from it. It puts me to sleep, and it keeps me asleep for a good few hours before I need to wake up, take a piss, and then by that time I'm pretty well fucking sleeping anyway. So I go back to bed and everything's all good. But in outside of supplementation, something I've found is really good is just getting sunlight in, like going for a walk. As soon as I wake up, I open the blinds as soon as I wake up, so I get daylight straight into my eyes, and I find that wakes me up really well, in opposed to fucking stumbling around the house trying to figure out who the fuck I am. Yeah, I'll open up the blinds, and it wakes me up real quick, along with my Vyvanse and Dexy, of course. That helps. I actually have an alarm set for my Vyvanse, so I'll pop that, I'll go back to sleep, so I'll wake up and I'm aware. But yeah, I'll make sure that I get out for my morning walk, because taking in that sunlight, there's actually science behind it as well.
Spikes of cortisol is one of them.
Sorry?
Spikes of cortisol, which is one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, and it helps with melatonin for later on that day. It releases the melatonin for then, so you can then get to sleep as well. So if you get up early, go for a walk, get some sunlight in your eyes. I'm not saying stare right at the fucking sun. Get some sunlight in your eyes, and you'll find that at nighttime you'll sleep a lot better just from doing that.
You'll start getting tired a little bit earlier as well. Like you won't be fucking beaming at night. You still actually start to calm down a little bit. But Dream is probably the best thing besides like fucking Phenibut, which you can hardly get anymore. Once again, it's the same with like meal timing around the gym. Like I used to be 45 minutes before and I felt great. Now I'm fucking bloated as fuck, probably because of the meal size. I have to push it back. With Dream, Matilda takes her right before bed, wakes up fucking amazing, because her sleep sucked. Like, so we actually sleep in different beds. That's another thing you can do if you have a partner. I find like you can fucking cuddle and whatever before. It doesn't, like, sleeping together, two unconscious bodies next to each other isn't even necessarily a fucking relationship thing, in my opinion. Like sleeping in different beds, if she moves, I'm awake, and then I'll fucking move, and then she's awake, and it constantly goes around, and it's just shit. For us, our bodybuilding is really important. So having separate beds for us has been fucking game changer as far as like sleep quality. But she's she's on Vyvanse as well, and she struggled to sleep even before taking that stuff. So this has been the only thing that's actually kept her asleep. So it depends. Like, and I'm usually an okay sleeper, so I'm probably more in the sleep already. So me taking it about, I only take half a scoop an hour to an hour and a half before bed, and then the falling to sleep is what gets me. I stay asleep, she doesn't stay asleep, but then getting to sleep for me is super easy. I just basically hit the pillow and I'm fucking gone, and then I sleep all the way through. Which is, if you fucking go to sleep and then you wake up in the morning, there is no fucking better feeling, because the amount of times I've fucking woken up at like 12 or like fucking 2 a.m. thinking it's the morning and I still have to fucking go back to sleep. I fucking hate that.
I love that.
Oh, I fucking hate it, man.
I love it. I'm
do
like,
shit.
yes, I've got another fucking 6 hours still. I thought it was time to get up, but I've got 6 hours. Fuck this. Yeah. But my partner also, she uses Dream because she works, she's got fucked up hours. She's a flight attendant. So she uses Dream to go to sleep and it knocks her out. She has a great sleep, like, but she even slept through her alarm this morning. She told me, she goes, oh, I had Dream last night. I slept through my alarm. And by the way, I think we're doing some great promo for Axe Laboratories right now. Take it later, Mark.
100%, 100%.
Maybe we should launch our own subs company now and start branding things and selling it for ourselves instead.
Yeah, fuck it. Get out of here. So that's perfect. So that's the other way to recover. Sleep being the main one, sleep routine, sleep quality, sleep supplements, CPAP, all of those things if you need. And then progressing. So recovery is a big part of progressing. Now we're talking about progressing. What metric do we increase? Do we increase calories or do we increase PEDs? When's the actual right time? Of course, everyone always thinks it's time to increase PEDs. That's the fun one, but it's usually not the right one. And depends on your line of thinking as to where, like, if it's above, cool, you're not going to run into an issue unless you're pushing it so far that it's stressing you. But if you can get away with less, you're going to increase your longevity in this sport and on this earth. And you're also going to increase the distance that you can travel up, because if you get to 100 kilo stage weight on a gram versus you get to 100 kilo stage weight on 1.5, everyone has a max threshold. So if you can get higher on less, that just means you can keep going up and up more and actually achieve more in this game. So
isn't it funny? Isn't it how funny how nobody gives a fuck about longevity? You're like, no, don't worry about that, man. Fucking bump the PEDs up. Don't worry about longevity. Don't worry about that later.
The next 12 weeks is all that matters, man. This comp, I don't care if I fucking die. And then they come back to reality and everything's fucked and you got to reset and then do the whole thing again. Like, you need to, one thing I did get from Victor Black, even though he is a little bit of a pompous a-hole sometimes, is thinking about things in the lifetime. So thinking about your lifetime exposure from the very get-go. It's not 12 weeks. It's not even 12 months. It's the next fucking however long you're on this earth. And every time you raise the milligrams, you raise the chance that it's going to be less time, and you decrease the time you can be on them and still fucking live healthily. So if you just be like, you're stepping it up, like I know for me, when I was younger, it was you start at 500, next one's 750, your next one's a gram, then fuck 1500. And that's where I finally decided I pulled the pin. And now I've come back and I'm on 350 total now, bigger than I ever was on 1500 after a 3-year break. So it's not, and the more I can tell you, it's not about total. It's not about the gear. And actually, a video I did today, just as a quick side note, is gear's simple. At the end of the day, it's like, as a very large generalization, the amount of milligrams will linearly increase how much nitrogen you retain and how much you can grow. And there's no real thing with timing because a lot of them are long esters. So you take them at whatever time. You increase your growth hormone. It's going to give you a bit more lipolysis, a little bit more hyperplasia. That's it. And then you pick the different ones depending on if you want a bit less estrogen, you want a little bit more joint health, you want a bit more nutrient partitioning. That's it. But when it comes to nutrition and training, man, there's so many metrics you can fucking change and so much accuracy and timing. And that's the real shit that requires a lot of knowledge and a lot of structure to the individual. Whereas PEDs, once you get that basic outline, just don't fucking kill yourself and take as little as possible. And that's what you do.
Yeah. I think if you have to be anal on anything, you have to be anal on nutrition.
1 billion%.
Because nutrition is what's going to drive everything. Now, I said that like that because you can't put nutrition as priority. That's number one, because you can't say nutrition is more important than training, because if you don't have training, nothing's going to fuck.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen the same anyway. They all mesh in together. They're all intertwined. Same 100%. With the PEDs as well.
PEDs is a multiplier somewhat, is how I see it.
Yeah, well, that's why they're called enhancements, because it's just going to enhance whatever you're doing.
Exactly.
Enhance recovery time, enhance protein synthesis, and enhance fucking everything across the board. But yeah, I would say, so basically with the periodization plan, you can set your PEDs out on that, and you can get blood work as you go to make sure that you either stick to this plan or adapt what needs to be adapted. with nutrition, you can't make a plan as you go because you don't know what's going to happen with the weight. You kind of have to gauge nutrition with whatever's happening with body weight, as long as you're getting progress pics as well. And you can see that the individual's staying quite lean because you want insulin sensitivity at a maximum to be able to grow muscle and not obtain fat. Yeah, so nutrition's number one, and it's something that should go up before PEDs, I feel. But at the same time, you don't want to be just driving nutrition up and that's it, 10 weeks into your growth phase, and you're still sitting on 200 megs a test, because you could be getting a lot more out of this nutrition had you put the PEDs up as well.
Yeah.
Basically, I like to structure things with a nice starting point, low test, 250 to 300 for myself. With clients, I'd go 200. It depends on body weight as well. So basically running a TRT at the start, then, get blood work done, make sure estrogen and everything's in the right place before you bump up. So I'd say bump up test next, take it growth phase maximum, 350, 400 for the beginning before you implement a DHT, which I'd say go primobolan during a growth phase, just because I think it suppresses estrogen a little bit less. I'm not sure if there's any science done on primobolan. Did I say primo? I did say
Primo,
primo.
Yeah.
But I think there's scientific studies done on mastron because they use that to suppress estrogen in people with breast cancer, females with breast cancer.
Main reason was the
with the primobolan, I find that works a lot better for a growth phase if it's real primobolan. I don't know, but yeah. So bring the test up, bring the primo up, and then later on when I'd put on the periodization plan 8 weeks prior to the end of it, I might implement a 19 NOR. Just because generally 19 NORs you can push for about 8 weeks before they start doing damage neurologically with your progesterone, prolactin as well. Yeah.
So there's a few ways to think about it. Like there's a Broderick-Chavez method, which is pretty much similar to what you're outlining, which is sort of like a linear scale of you pick X minimum threshold, you pick X maximum threshold, which will slowly increase over time, and you sort of somewhat linearly increase. And the way I see that working is you're always staying ahead of the curve. You're never hitting that ceiling to where anything you're doing is ineffective. And that's a great way, especially if you're, there's two ways. You can either do it as more of a somewhat of a set and forget style. But the way that I like to do it is it's a lot more, well, that's again, everything that I do is fucking probably ridiculously complicated, but that's just the way that my brain works. So the way I like to do is basically I'll start at a test level that, so say you got a freshie that's never done PEDs before. We'll start with just testosterone, obviously, to test the waters, to see how they respond, any side effects they get, acne, blood pressure, hair loss, whatever. See how much, because everyone's an individual as far as how much, how high your blood levels go on a certain milligram dosage, how much you convert to estrogen, how much you convert to DHT. Everyone's a genetic individual as far as it comes to that. So you can handle less or more testosterone. So for myself, I'm a high converter with aromatase. So I get really high estrogen really quickly. So if I'm running testosterone by itself, I can't do over 200 milligrams without getting gyno. Like I've got gyno in my left nip that is still, it's even tender now, and I'm on 200 test 150 primo, and it's my estrogen's still a little bit, hey, going, I've got to get bloods done this week actually, or next week. So I'm just coming out of the cutting phase. So in the cut, I was doing,
yeah.
I was on just 200 tests for fucking, I don't even know, like 4 months. And then no, just test, just 200 tests. And then now I've just added in 150 primo, 2IU or GH. Yep. So, and that's sort of so 200 for the down, and then 150 primo and 2IU for the curve. And then now I just have to see, and this leads me into when it comes to growing, there's the way I like to do it is I'll increase food until, and as long as I'm increasing strength in the gym and I can see visually that I'm with calipers as well, that I'm increasing muscle at a good rate, called a P ratio, your muscle compared to the amount of fat you're gaining. And once I'm pushing up calories, and once the P ratio starts to twist to being more fat, that's when I'll make an escalation in PEDs. So for me, so if we take that freshie again, they start on 200 testosterone, we'll push that up until we start to see too much aromatization or too much DHT if they're losing hair or something like that, or even on their bloods. And we find, so when they're taking testosterone by itself, say it's can be anywhere from like fucking 150 to 500. Some people just don't aromatize and they handle testosterone awesome. Fuck you if that's you. But it's because
200 is very low, by the way, to anyone listening. 200 is very low to aromatize that.
Yeah, very low. So I'm unlucky in that sense. But then once we start to add DHT, next I would add a DHT derivative, probably primobolan in a growth phase, as Masteron doesn't have much clinical evidence as far as like tissue accumulation where primobolan does, as well as affecting E2 still, but less so. Yeah. And so say, for example, you hit your max threshold at 200 test, or let's say 300, that'd be probably most people. Then you add in 100 milligrams of primobolan. That's now going to reduce the amount of estrogen in your body. So if you were to then just say increase only primo at 100, then 200, 300, 400, 500. If you're at now 300 tests, 500 primo, your E2 may now be too low because it's help blocking the conversion to estrogen. So you might actually have to raise them somewhat concurrently to find that ratio. And the only way that you can do that is through bloods. And the day you can give general outlines, but everyone is a genetic individual. You may not even respond very well to primobolan. You may need a 19 NOR or EQ to grow. The only way to know is to fucking do it yourself. Not recommending, not suggesting. But if you were to do this, that would be the way that I would do it. That's
hypothetically
the fire way. Hey?
Yeah, hypothetically speaking.
Hypothetically speaking.
Just saying that in case we get our ass kicked for fucking, because I put this on YouTube, just in case we get kicked for doing something like that.
None of this is medical advice. Speak to your doctor. We're not recommending anything. We don't do anything that we're saying. We're just talking shit.
All just for shits and giggles.
Exactly. So the way that, once again, to start with the testosterone, start to layer in the DHT derivative, up to whatever dosage we need. So increasing that, so I would increase the PEDs only when we increase the food, that we start to see a little bit of softening and getting too much fat. So then the next jump will be PEDs. And then with that new PED dose, we'll start to increase calories. Once I get too soft, increase PEDs, calories, PEDs. Now, that is essentially what Dylan's doing, but he's just making sure that he doesn't have to hit that wall and stays ahead of the curve, to where throughout the increase of the linear increase in PEDs, you'll also be linearly increasing calories, but you're just making sure that you're staying that little bit ahead of those calorie increases so that you're never letting that P ratio get too low and you're getting too much fat. That will work for most people. But this would be the way to, if you want to do this for a long time and find out your own individual genetics of everything, this is a way to find out, that's my test. Okay, now it's about, I can usually get maybe 300 to 400 calorie increases before I need to increase my PD. So once you do this once, you'll pretty much be able to then figure out what kind of linear increase you get to until you get to a new threshold where you'll have to start to play with your bloods. And this is just a much more, it's an annoying process because every time basically you have to get bloods to like every, 6 to 8 weeks, we're drawing bloods to find out where the estrogen's at, to find out which one we can increase, find out what your max threshold dosage to stay healthy. Because in this growth phase as well, how long we run it for is it still working? It's going to keep working for a fucking long time after you get unhealthy. So we need to check what your max dosage is to stay healthy. So I know that on healthy, by the way, my no dosage is healthy. So
bodybuilder,
my personal levels are healthy on everything's in range when I'm on 200 testosterone. So now that I've been running the 200 testosterone 150 primo, gonna get my blood I've been doing that for I think 6 weeks. That should be pretty level in my system. I'm gonna check what my bloods are, if that's a dose that I can tolerate for an extended period of time and keep my levels in range. Once you know what level of milligrams of each compound you can run and keep everything in range, you now know that when you push above that, every time you push above that, how out of range you're going to get and how long you can stay in that period before you have to drop it back to a place where you can get healthy.
And not every time's the same either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You might do your next cycle and your blood work is completely different again. Your body's acting and responding completely different than it did the first time.
Exactly. It does give you a rough guide, but yeah, exactly. Every time is different. And then there's just a lot of experimentation because then now I'm the exact same as you. I do testosterone, like DHT derivative. I only add 19 NORs if I'm sort of at the end of that growth phase, exactly the same as you, and
Yeah.
I'll add NPP. Just for if my joints start to get shit after pushing a shitload of weight. But I'm fucking super sensitive to everything, man. I get
So
depression.
train wouldn't be your cup of tea, would it?
Fuck no. So I've done, yeah,
Yeah,
700 training in the past, and I thought I was normal, but I was a raging asshole. I've never done trend in a smart. There's no way smart way to do trend, but a less retard way.
That's another thing. We spoke about body awareness before,
mm,
like psychological
mm,
awareness is another thing too. Like people that are on trend think they're fucking normal.
yep.
They might be they might be dry humping a fucking tree and they think it's normal at the time because they're in their own head at the
Yep.
time. So they think it's normal.
But finally, one of the weirdest side effects of trend is sexual deviancy. There's a lot of
Yeah.
people turn to the trannies in Thailand and liking
Yeah.
different weird kinky shit.
Yeah.
Like that's a
I hear
genuine
about
side
that all
effect.
the time. That's why I used humping a tree as a fucking example as well.
Exactly. Um, but yeah, with Nandrolone, I do have a tendency to get low mood and depressed.
Yeah.
And I do get paranoid on trend. So it's something that I use very sparingly. Yeah. So I wouldn't mess with that unless you have to. But once again, when we're talking, so at the end of the day, raising total milligrams is going to increase your nitrogen retention, which is going to increase the amount of muscle you can hold for the amount of fat you have. And which one you pick will sort of have other effects. Testosterone's most bioidentical. That's going to be awesome if you can get that as high as possible, without having any negative effects from that. DHT derivative is going to help bring that estrogen down, as well as primobolan specifically being one of the more quote unquote safer steroids or less harsh on your blood profiles. And then your 19 NORs, so nandrolone is usually going to be used for something that we're going to, help with our joints a little bit, help with a little bit of water retention, swelling, be able to keep a little bit more nutrients around our muscle. Tren is really good at nutrient partitioning. So helping put more of your food that you're eating into the muscle. That's why it's a really strong, actually, anti-catabolic. So like in a cut phase, it's really good at partitioning the nutrients into muscle rather than into fat. So
Same as growth phase also, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, but it is obviously the 19 NORs are much more stressful on all your blood profiles, plus neurologically and cardio wise, they're not amazing either. EQ is one that I definitely moved away from because I got anxiety on it, but it is one that I'm eventually going to try and go back to and re-experiment. Once again, everyone's different point in my life. My anxiety is under control, so it might be better for me.
That's something you want to really check blood work with as well, because your red blood cell count might go through the fucking roof, and that's going to cause a whole heap of issue. So that's something you want to be careful with EQ.
Exactly.
Just in case anyone, keep an eye on your fucking red blood cell count, your hematocrit.
Yeah, exactly. So when it comes to raising calories and raising PEDs, there are some general guidelines. You can either do it as test, but once again, everyone's individual. You can do it as in the method of you're going to be starting at the lowest threshold dose. You're going to be moving to something that's somewhat moderate, titrating up over time. The only way you can sort of actually truly learn is doing your own blood things, doing your blood work, observing the result. And once you've done that a few times, you'll sort of know what works for you, what doesn't.
And get guidance from somebody who knows what they're talking about as well.
Absolutely. I wish I had it, man.
If you're doing it on your own and you don't have any knowledge about anything, you could look at the blood work and you don't know what's happening. Like your liver enzymes are going to be increased, obviously. That's okay. If you have PEDs, it's okay. You want them liver enzymes to break down the extra stuff that's going in. Your estrogen's going to be increased, but that's okay to a certain amount. Same with your test is going to be going through the roof as well. Your free testosterone increased also, and all that stuff's all right, but it'll come up red on the blood panel because it looks like it's in a dangerous place. But that's for somebody who's not enhanced.
Exactly.
That's what comes up red. That's a general population reference point.
Yeah. And there's things like growth hormone reducing thyroid hormone, growth hormone with blood sugar levels, HbA1c, becoming insulin resistant. There's many things when it comes to messing with these things, other than just your bro saying, fuck bro, they make you massive. There's much more to it than that. and you have to think of it as lifetime exposure. Like that's one of my biggest regrets is I wasted so much exposure to my health when I was younger and getting no result from it because didn't know what I was doing nutritionally, didn't know what I was doing training wise, even though I thought I did, as every 18-year-old does. And definitely didn't know what I was doing PD wise, even though I probably had more of an idea than most people. It was still, and even me now, I'll sure look back in 10 years and be like, fuck, I wish I knew even more. And you can only know so much. I know enough now to do it as what the current literature says, but science is always pushing forward. And you're always finding new things that it does work this way, doesn't work that way. And there's always more through observation. But you have to think about it as lifetime exposure. You could say it's in the X thousand of milligrams you can take over your lifetime before you have to stop. And if you what all in the beginning, you might get halfway. Whereas if you slowly did it and you know all the nutrition and made the absolute most of every milligram you put into your body, you're going to get as far as you can while staying as healthy as you can in the entire process.
And when it comes to bodybuilding, there's not a lot of scientifically proven things because everything's pretty much anecdotal.
100%.
Like there are some doctors and scientists and stuff that are bodybuilders now as well who are also doing some great content in regards to, putting out there what can and can't be done with PEDs, what should be done, what estrogen's for, what testosterone's for, what different compounds are for. There's some really good stuff that you can find on YouTube, just YouTube alone, or listening to podcasts. But at the end of the day, there's nothing that's actually, well, there's a few things, but there's not a whole lot of stuff that's been actually scientifically proven because the government's not going to put out a fuckload of money to study us idiots that are like 1% of the fucking population. They're not going to put all this money on us because they're worried about our health. They just kind of push that aside and think, well, that's fucking you guys' problem. We're worrying about, Gen Pop.
Exactly.
The normal people of the world.
So most of the studies are either extrapolated from, someone with muscular dystrophy or someone with fucking breast cancer or AIDS patients is a common one as well, where there is a few studies on healthy males and healthy, there's not many on healthy females with PEDs.
There's studies done on athletes, but
there's a couple on Gen Pop, but once again, we're not fucking Gen Pop. We're already here and we're trying to get there. Whereas they're just seeing what happens if you take it here. Is it like what's the max tolerable dose? What protein? How much muscle does it increase? But that's not with training. That's not with our fucking anal nutrition. That's just it is nothing. Yeah, as Dylan said, it comes down to there's nothing exactly on us. It's all extrapolated. The only true stuff is the bro science, and even if there was a general one, this happens to bodybuilders in general. You're still a genetic individual.
Yeah. And when we say bro science, we don't mean gym bros. Gym bros are a different thing again. They're a breed of their own. And they're giving out a lot of false information. Like you'll get your random, because I have clients who are young fellas, and they mix in with all the gym bros and I'm hearing what's flying around here and there. And people are doing first cycles that are like 700 megs of testosterone with 1,000 megs of tren. Like this is a fucking first cycle too. And I'll ask them why. Ask your mate why he's doing that. And they don't know why they're doing it, just because Coleman was on that much fucking trend. And, they heard that other bodybuilders around the gym go up to 700 test. So they're